Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. And today I'm going to give my review of WrestleMania 8. Starting off the evening, we'll go to our first match of the night. It is Shawn Michaels versus Tito Santana. I thought this was an okay opening matchup for WrestleMania 8. Back and forth matchup between Shawn Michaels and Tito Santana. Tito was keeping the pace of the match. Shawn ends up hitting a super kick on Tito in the middle of the ring. Tito gets up, hits a flying forearm on Shawn Michaels. But Shawn Michaels ends up hitting a roll-up on Tito Santana, pinning him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Shawn Michaels. Hats off to Shawn Michaels for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is Jake Roberts versus The Undertaker. Again, I thought this was an okay matchup. Back and forth matchup between both Jake Roberts and The Undertaker, with The Undertaker keeping the pace of the match. Jake hits a signature DDT on The Undertaker. Jake then also hits a signature clothesline on The Undertaker as well. Undertaker then hits a tombstone on Jake Roberts on the outside. Rolls Jake into the ring, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match is The Undertaker. Hats off to The Undertaker for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is for the WWE Intercontinental Championship. It is Roddy Piper versus Bret Hart. I thought this was a great match. Back and forth matchup between both Piper and Hart, with Piper keeping the pace of the match. Hart and Piper both exchange in the middle of the ring. Piper applies a sleeper hold on Bret, but Bret ends up turning it into a roll-up, pins for the 3, and your winner of the match, and at that time, new WWE Intercontinental Champion, is Bret Hart. Hats off to Bret Hart for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the Nasty Boys, Mountie and Repo Man versus Jim Duggan, Boss Man, Virgil, and Sergeant Slaughter. I thought this was an okay matchup. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with Jim Duggan, Big Boss Man, Virgil, and Sergeant Slaughter keeping the pace of the match. Jerry Sags then goes to hit Virgil, but missed and ends up hitting Brian Knobbs. Virgil then goes for the cover, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are Jim Duggan, Big Boss Man, Virgil, and Sergeant Slaughter. Hats off to Jim Duggan, Boss Man, Virgil, and Sergeant Slaughter for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is for the WWE Championship. It is Ric Flair versus Randy Savage. Again, I thought this was a great match. Back and forth matchup between both Flair and Savage, with Randy keeping the pace of the match. Ric Flair and Randy Savage both exchange in the middle of the ring. Randy hits an elbow drop off the top rope on Flair. Hennig then pulls Flair out of the ring. Flair then hits Randy with a weapon, with the referee being distracted. Hennig then hits Randy with a chair shot. Miss Elizabeth makes her way down to the ring. Flair applies a figure 4 leg lock on Randy Savage, but Randy Savage ends up hitting a roll up on Flair, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match, and at that time, new WWE Champion, is Randy Savage. Hats off to Randy Savage for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is Tantaka versus Rick Martel. I thought it was an okay matchup. Back and forth matchup between both Tantaka and Rick Martel, with Tantaka keeping the pace of the match. But Tantaka ultimately hits a crossbody on Rick Martel, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Tantaka. Hats off to Tantaka for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. It is for the WWE Tag Team Championships. It is the Natural Disasters versus Money Inc. I thought it was an okay matchup. Back and forth matchup between both teams, with the Natural Disasters keeping the pace of the match. And the Natural Disasters ultimately get the win in this matchup due to count out. So hats off to Natural Disasters for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night as well. This, to me, was a glorified squash match. It is Owen Hart versus Skinner. I thought it was an okay matchup. Back and forth matchup between both Owen Hart and Skinner, with Skinner keeping the pace of the match. But Owen Hart ultimately hits a roll-up on Skinner, pins him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Owen Hart. Hats off to Owen Hart for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our main event of WrestleMania 8. It is Hulk Hogan versus Sid Justice. Again, I thought this was an okay matchup, kind of lackluster. Back and forth matchup between both Hogan and Sid Justice, with Sid keeping the pace of the match. Sid Justice hits a devastating chokeslam on Hogan in the middle of the ring. Sid also hits a powerbomb on Hogan as well. Hogan gets up, hits a big boot on Sid Vicious as well as a leg drop. Papa Shango is here. Shango ends up attacking Hogan in the middle of the ring. Ultimate Warrior ends up showing up, helping Hogan by attacking Papa Shango. And your winner of the match by DQ is Hulk Hogan. A couple things I'm going to say about WrestleMania 8, man, before I get out of here. Number one, and this might be a hot take, but I thought WrestleMania 8 was probably by far the worst WrestleMania of all time. I don't know who booked WrestleMania. Obviously, I guess it was Vince McMahon. But the match quality and the way they lined up the matches on this card was absolutely horrendous. I mean, you had the co-main of WrestleMania 8 be Owen Hart and Skinner. And I'm not taking anything away from Owen Hart. I think Owen Hart's a fantastic wrestler and an athlete. But to have a glorified squash match that Owen Hart had against Skinner, it was not need to be a co-main event. And to be honest with you, I think Hogan and Sid Justice should have been the co-main event, and the main event should have been for the WWE Championship. It should have been Flair versus Randy Savage. And not only that, I mean, for all intents and purposes, I would have put Roddy Piper and Bret Hart for the Intercontinental Championship as the co-main event. WrestleMania 8, man, was absolutely horrendous. I think by far it probably went down as one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. If I had to give WrestleMania 8 a rating from 1 out of 10, I'm going to give it a 4 at best. And the main reason why is because of those three matches. Hogan and Sid Justice was okay. Piper and Bret was awesome. And obviously Randy Savage versus Ric Flair for the WWE Championship. That was it. The rest of this card was in shambles. And even Hogan versus Sid Justice wasn't that great. But it was Hulk Hogan against Sid Justice. You know, take it with what you will. But all in all, WrestleMania 8 was awful. I mean, I had to give WrestleMania 8 a solid 4 at best. But this is my review of WrestleMania 4. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful and remember, or WrestleMania 8, I'm sorry. This is my review of WrestleMania 8. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful and remember, stay classic.